What's up, guys? It's been with 2020 election predictions. Right in listening to a lot of the. I listened to both town halls last night. I was watching a Biden rally before, and right now I'm watching the Trump rally commence. And I just kind of wanted to give an update on where I think the race is right now. So Donald Trump is kind of at the lowest that he has been in the betting odds, and I mean I think this is for several reasons. We have seen that after the first debate and after Trump had COVID, that Trump was down to I think the lowest he's ever been at about a 32% chance to win. He's recently bounced back a little bit, so right now he's at a 36% chance, and I think as Trump kind of goes more on the campaign trail, he had 2 stops today in Florida. He's currently at his second one right now. And just the optics of it look pretty good. I mean, most of them are wearing masks. And, I mean, there's a lot of people coming out to see the president. Biden is also kind of on the trail right now. We're only 18 days until the election. So definitely – I mean, everything is kind of going to hinge on the last 2 weeks. And if we kind of look back at the 2016 presidential election, we can see that Hillary Clinton was up by a lot. But then after the Comey letter came out, we definitely saw it narrow. So I definitely think that Trump has a couple aces up his sleeves. I think as president, he kind of has more power with the October surprises, whether it is an executive order in the last couple of days. So by no means do I think we should count Trump out right now. Right now, if I had to choose, I'd probably say that Biden definitely has an advantage going in, but Trump is trending in the right direction right here. I mean, we saw one poll that came out that had Trump up in Michigan right now. It's definitely an outlier. By no means do I think Trump is going to win Michigan. But if Trump is polling closer in Michigan, then I think that Pennsylvania and Wisconsin are definitely going to be more winnable for him. And like I've said in the past, Trump has to win one of the Rust Belt states, whether it's Minnesota, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, or Michigan. I think Michigan, honestly, out of those 4 is probably going to be the hardest. But all he needs to do is win one of them and kind of keep his coalition in North Carolina, Florida. And he doesn't even necessarily need to win Arizona. But the Rust Belt is going to decide the 2020 election. And we have some kind of in the past couple weeks or so that Biden has extended his lead in the state of Pennsylvania. So it's instead of being about 1 polling error off, it's probably about 2 polling errors off. We would have to see something like we saw in 2016 when Trump was down 6 points in the Wisconsin polls, but still won it. So that was a 6.5 bias in the in the polls there. So I definitely think we're going to see more, or we're still going to see a bias in the polls going into 2020. However, I don't think it's going to be as large as what we saw in 2016. Polls are not always going to be accurate, and I think people are being a little bit more suspicious of the polls going forward. But let's see. Sticky Mountain, Let's Talk Politics. Hello. Thank y'all for joining. I try to do a live stream every now and then to kind of engage with my fans. So if y'all kind of have any questions in the chat, Sticky Mountain asks, what's your political party? I definitely try to keep things neutral, so I'm not going to reveal that right now. I'm kind of going to dodge that question. Amy Coney Barrett has been in the hearings, but I mean, obviously it makes sense why she would do that, because she is a justice. So, what do you think that the margin in Texas will be? I definitely think that Trump was going to win in the state of Texas. However, it's definitely going to be closer than it was in 2016. So in 2016, it was about a 9-point margin for Trump. I think it was about 52 to 43 for Hillary Clinton. I think right now that Trump's going to be sitting right at about 50%. I think that Trump's probably going to win Texas between 3 and 4 points. The polls are kind of bouncing back and forth. I think John Cornyn is probably going to win between 5 and 6 points, so do a little better than Trump, but I don't think Trump will have any problems winning. And we can see that 538 is cautious about the polls. They are, but still, the heaviest weight in kind of their model is it is the polls. So I definitely think that we could see some change in there, and I don't necessarily think that the 538 polls are going to be entirely accurate. So how will the third debate impact Trump? I think Trump had a pretty horrendous debate performance in the first presidential debate. So I think he can kind of only improve from now. I think he's going to kind of be taught, and I think that he's going to maybe take some of the advice from his career. But there you go. So let's see. Look more to voter registration sets. Nor puts model on primary participation rate enthusiasm sets. Too many folks relying too much on the polls. So I definitely think this is going to be a factor. I think we should definitely look at more things than the polls. Looking at voter registration data in Florida, it's actually been very, very good for the GOP. Even though in the polls that Trump is kind of slightly down. So I think that's very, very interesting. So Siggy Mount says, do you think Trump will win Utah? I don't think anyone's questioning this. Trump is going to win Utah, I think, by even a larger margin than he did in 2016, because in 2016 we saw that there's a third party, Evan McMullen, there. So how long is this stream? So I'll probably go until I get tired, maybe 20 minutes or so. I definitely want to answer all y'all's questions, and I'll definitely try to stay on more if you use the super chat feature. And how that works is you kind of click the $, and you can just type in any question you want. And that's kind of be what I will focus on for the remainder of the time. So please, if you are willing to kind of support the channel, I'd love for y'all to do that. So right now, kind of just looking at where the betting odds right now, it does appear that in the past couple of days that Trump has improved his position. He was kind of at 32, and now he's at 36. But so if it kind of trends on this upward trajectory, then we could see him definitely improving kind of going into election day. This is what he did in 2016. For the last about 10 days after the cumulator, we saw just Trump going up. So he was down by a significant margin. In the 538, he was in, I think it was at about 12% 10 days out, but he rose all the way up to 27% or 28% going into the election. So right now, Trump is at 13%, which is lower than he was on election day in 2016. But if he continues to improve his standing, he's definitely taken a slide in the past couple of weeks. But I'm talking about like just in the last couple of days. And so I mean the polls lag behind kind of where the actual race is by, I would say, about 3 to 4 points. And so that's where we have it right now. Kind of looking at where I think the races in some of these states, I think that Trump was definitely losing it in Florida for a while. I think that Florida is a pure toss-up right now, might even tilt towards Trump. North Carolina, the same. Where I think we've seen Biden's best improvements are in the state of Pennsylvania. Trump was kind of only down by about 4 points in the Real Core Politics average, but right now we can see that Trump is about 7 to 8 to 9 points up, and I think Pennsylvania could prove to be the most important state. Trump has to win Florida to win the election. he doesn't necessarily need to win Pennsylvania, but I think that's his easiest path to 270. So Kimberly Freeman, thank you for the compliment on my analysis there. I love all my fans. Rising in the last minute of the election isn't a viable option for Trump this election with all the early voting. So, I mean, I definitely think that there's going to be more early voting, more vote by mail in this election than we've seen in the past. However, like every election in the past, I think it's going to keep the pattern on. We're going to see most people vote on election day, and I think that's why we're going to maybe see the biggest the October surprise come later. I mean, I definitely know anecdotally that a lot of people are voting early, but still, we see in every election that still most people kind of vote on election day. So let's see. After the election, will you tell us who you supported? I think that I will. I think that after the election, I will, because I don't want to bias anyone now. I don't want to tell anyone to vote for anyone, but because I just don't think that's what we should do right now, and that's not the type of channel that I am. So Kimberly Freeman, thank you so much for the super chat right there. I really appreciate it. If any of y'all want to follow her lead, that's really nice. So thank you so much, Kimberly Freeman. I really appreciate that right there. Let's see. Trey Pravaz says, I just got on. Who do you predict? So according to kind of my models, I think that right now Joe Biden has a 65% chance to win. It was about dead even in early September, but Joe Biden has definitely improved on kind of improved with his margins. I think that at one point Pennsylvania was very close to a toss-up, but I think right now that definitely Biden has pulled ahead in the state of Pennsylvania. Let's see. Trump's approval rating is higher than his national average. So I think this is honestly pretty interesting, because if we do look on 538, this is exactly the case. I really don't think that the approval numbers really matter that much at this point. I think the polls are going to matter a lot more. I think that Trump's approval rating mattered a lot more kind of in 2017, 2018, when we kind of have the head-to-head matchup in the polls. But also, I would say that the national popular vote doesn't really matter at all. So that's something that definitely gets a lot of media attention, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really mean much because of our electoral college vote. So Kimberly Freeman, thank you again so much for the super. Really appreciate it right there. And if any of y'all want to follow her lead, you can just kind of click on the $ there, and you can even kind of ask a question, and that'll be something that I focus on right there. So thank you so much. Let's see. If Pennsylvania goes red, Trump will win the election. I do agree with this sentiment as well. Are these states the path of victory for Trump? Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. So all Trump has to do is win North Carolina, Florida, and Pennsylvania if he wins kind of both congressional districts in Nebraska and Maine. And this would assume that he's going to hold on to Iowa and Ohio, which I definitely think he will. I don't really think anyone is. I mean, the election is not going to be decided in the state of Ohio. Ohio is definitely to the right of kind of the country at large. Sorry, I have to plug in my laptop right here. So that's definitely what I think as of now. So do you think that the betting odds are giving Trump a higher or lower shot than he actually has? So before, I think they might have kind of overestimated Trump's chances a little bit when they were about even. I think right now they're probably exactly where they should be. That they have Trump. I think the last Real Clear Politics average I thought was about 35%. That's kind of where I have the race kind of in my model right now. I don't have it as low as 13%. Like they have kind of on the 538, just because I think there's a lot of variables they're not accounting for. I mean, if you just look at the polls, then I think it would be pretty obvious that Biden is going to win. But I think if you kind of zoom out and kind of look at more of the kind of the other data points, kind of also account for the bias in the polls, then I think we see a lot closer race. Because I mean, with the voter registration data, we do actually see that the Republicans are kind of closing the gap there, which is definitely something that I was not really expecting beforehand. Let's see. So let's see. Ohio be the first to tip red, then Georgia, then North Carolina, then Florida, then Arizona, then Pennsylvania, then Wisconsin. That's probably what I agree with as well. I don't know if you're taking that from the 538 website, because that's kind of the exact order they have it right there. But yeah, I think Pennsylvania will more than likely be the tipping point state in this election. So therefore, in the tipping point state, it's going to be the most important. So Texas in the future, liberal socialist says it's going to be D+2 in 2024. I actually don't necessarily agree with this. I think Kamala Harris is probably going to be the nominee in 2024. If Biden loses or wins, I think if Biden wins, then I don't think he's going to run for a second term. I don't think Kamala Harris is going to have a huge appeal in the state of Texas. And I think it's very, very likely that we'll actually see someone from Texas be the 2024 Republican nominee. Whether it's Ted Cruz, Dan Crenshaw. I mean, I think there's a host of different people that it could be. But I think that they'll probably have a better chance of appealing or have a higher appeal in the state of Texas than someone like Kamala Harris. I think Kamala Harris does well in places, but I just don't think that Texas is the type of place where she would succeed in doing. We've seen that in the Democratic primaries, Kamala Harris did not do very well with Hispanics. And I think that's, I mean, obviously one of the biggest demographic groups in the state of Texas. Does the current tone and polarized climate and politics bother you? Definitely. And this is not something that I comment on a lot, but yeah, definitely our country is as polarized as it ever has been, and it's definitely not a great development there. So, okay, guys, thank you all so much for going to my live stream. I'll probably do this for about 2 to 3 more minutes. So if you'll have any last questions, you can just ask them in and I'll try to answer that. Or kind of, yeah. So, awesome. If Trump wins Florida, what's his chance at victory? I think if Trump wins Florida, then his chance definitely improves. But I would still say it's about 50-50. Because, I mean, if Trump loses Florida, I think his chances go down to about like 5 to 10%. But if he wins Texas, and I think we can look at this on the JHK forecast. So let me actually do that right now. The JHK forecast, there's this tool called the Presidential Forecast Manipulator. And if we do see that Trump wins Florida, we see him at a 45% chance. So I think this is very kind of pretty accurate measure, to be honest. What are the chances of Oregon going to Trump? Very, very slim. Just because, I mean, I think since we're just so polarized, we're not going to see a lot of swing states. So, okay, guys, thank you all so much for the hopping on, and I'll definitely try to do one later. Thanks, guys.